Welcome back everybody, I'm Alex and this is Fathom Aquatics. This is my brand new 90-gallon Bowfront Aquarium. I just got this from a friend. I was thinking about making a little mini series, kind of refurbishing this and getting it ready for how I want to set it up. Okay, so I flipped this whole thing around. I'll probably paint over this. I'll mask this off for now, but I think that I'm gonna paint the stand black in the future. Let's get some of this tape on here. Now, I'm not gonna fold this down. I'm gonna leave it out and I'm actually gonna put one more layer of tape on that. What this is gonna do is help with any drips that I might get. So when I paint my tanks, I like to use just black latex paint. It comes off really easy if you want it to, and you can usually do a couple layers and make it really nice and thick. I don't have a paint tray right now, so I'm just gonna use a plate. So this is gonna take several coats, and what you wanna do is you'll see this first layer, it's gonna be real spotty, and that's totally fine because everything after this is gonna stick to that. So I'm not gonna worry too much about getting full coverage on this first coat. And another thing to point out, when you're painting a tank, if you press too hard, you'll just smear like that. But if you just do light pressure, you can go back and forth without smearing. And because the top of this trim is a little bit beat up, I'm just gonna paint over this too. To get into these cracks, I'm gonna use a little foam brush, and I'm just gonna push it up into the seam. And this is just gonna help with any light leak that's gonna come out. You'll see it from the back. Okay, so that's all I need for this first coat. And just to show you how it's gonna look, I'll use this light. You can see it's still real spotty on the inside. I'll probably need 3 or 4 coats to get this whole thing with a nice thick coat of paint on it. Okay, well as you can see, it's pretty dark now. Let me grab my light. I did a couple more coats. There's just a little bit of light that comes through. All right, now it's a pretty good coat now. So I'm just gonna do a quick little pass left and right just to make sure it's all even. This shouldn't make too much of a difference because all the texture shouldn't really be seen from the other side. But I'd like to be as neat as I can with this. So this looks pretty good. Let's see, how's the light looking? There's barely any light coming through now, so that's probably where I want it. And from the other side, it does look pretty good. I'll let this dry and I'll see if it's good to go when it's dry. Okay, so here's how the tank is looking. I put a couple more coats. It's all dry now, see? There's like a haze through the glass. So I went ahead and water tested it and it was good. So now I'm gonna add this little bit of egg crate, and I cut it to the shape of roughly the bottom of the tank, but it's a little bit hard because it's a Bowfront. But I measured it to be about the same size as where I'm gonna be adding any of my large rocks, and this is just gonna prevent any kind of damage that might happen to the bottom glass. So now I'm starting to add my very first bit of substrate, and I'm starting with my gravel because it's what's gonna be used on the outside. And what I like to do is start stacking it up a little bit high just on the very front, so any of my soil and all the other layers of substrate that I use aren't going to be visible, and I'm not going to have all these little different like waves of different layers. Just at the very front, all you're going to be able to see is just going to be one single cohesive layer of gravel. However, on the inside of the tank a little bit further, like a few inches past, there's going to be a bunch of different layers of stuff that you'll see here in just a second. So I just added some like cheap gravel right on top of the egg crate, and this is just going to help give me a little bit of volume, and it's just going to help me be able to use some more of the other substrate and be able to stack everything up just a little bit higher without wasting some of the more expensive stuff. The next thing I put down is 2 bags of Eco Complete by KRC. Now I like Eco Complete because it's kind of like lava rock, where it's mostly like a clay structure, I believe, but it's kind of soaked in a lot of like fertilizers and some beneficial bacteria. And because it's kind of like a clay structure, it acts almost like a media, especially down in your substrate. So having a nice thick layer of that is very beneficial. Another thing I do just to save a little bit of money when you're trying to fill up a big tank like this full of soil is the soil is very expensive, but you know it's not free rocks. So I start stacking up some rocks in the back, because in the back middle I'm gonna have a kind of like a mound
of a raised area where there's going to be more gravel and sand and stuff, and I'm going to have some rocks up above the soil, but I want to be able to lift that up much higher without having to dump like an entire bag of like $40 aqua soil or something. So a little trick is to kind of just use some rocks just to kind of lift everything up, and I do this before I put the soil. That way some of the soil will be on top of this rock, and it'll be closer to the surface where the roots of the plants can still reach the soil and get benefits from having all those nutrients so close. Now that I have the back structure built up a little bit, I'm going to start adding my soil, and for that you can see I'm using UNS Contra soil. I'm a big fan of UNS Contra soil. I've used it several times in the past and I've always had great success with it. Now that the soil's in place, I'm going to go ahead and start adding my UNS Contra sand, and the Contra sand that I use is the Kona variety. Now the Kona variety looks like very small river pebbles, and there's like a really nice color gradient between dark grays and some light browns, and I think it looks really good once it gets underwater. So it's kind of like my favorite gravel right now, and I'm kind of using it in everything. But I'm just a big fan of it, and I wanted to use it in this tank too. If you notice, I'm using a small cup to scatter the gravel on top of the surface before I start pouring it in. This way it kind of protects the shape of the soil, and it's not going to disrupt my big pile of soil from kind of falling all over the place when I start adding a lot more gravel at a time. Alright, finally time for rocks. So I got excited about this. I had to keep going back and forth to my fish store just to keep buying out all of their big pieces of dragonstone. But as you can see, it's kind of like working with a puzzle, and I'm using super glue and Instaset to keep everything together. So here's the final structure of what I ended up going with, and I think this is going to turn out really great. This next part is probably the most time consuming that I really didn't think about, is trying to plant every single one of these little sections of hair grass. Now I ended up using, I don't know, somewhere between like 6 to 10 different tissue cultures, and some of them aren't exactly the same. They're different brands and stuff, so there might be a little bit of a variety here, but that's fine. So I'm just going ahead and individually planting every single one of these, and it really took up so much time, so I'm going to be fast forwarding through this video, but you can kind of see the process of going through and taking each one and using the tweezers to push it down into the soil.
So here's what I've come up with so far for my 90-gallon Bowfront. So I set up some of my dragonstone rock work in 3 kind of main formations. They're all kind of leaning to this side. I went in and I planted a whole bunch of hair grass and some anubias out in the back side. So I'm hoping this kind of fills in a little bit. I haven't decided on what kind of light I want to use, so right now I'm just kind of using a shop light. I just have it up here just to give something for the plants to kind of keep growing. There's a little bit of a tint into the water because when I filled it up, you probably saw I used a strainer with a bag. I've got an AquaClear 75 in the back left side, just temporarily until I get some new hoses. I have a couple big Marineland canisters and I just need to get some new hoses for them and set that up. But here's how it's looking. I'll go ahead and take the camera off the tripod. Let's take a look, a little bit of a closer look, so you can see how this front rock structure actually kind of curves to the side, mirroring the Bowfront. And you can see I started putting in a whole bunch of hair grass all over. It's hard to tell how big the rocks actually are because of the wide angle and how the video is and everything. But I mean, this is a 90-gallon tank, so it's pretty big. Especially these, you know, like if I put my hand here, like these are big rocks. And I went and have hair grass coming around the front. I saved myself some spots over on this side and a little bit over there because I'm thinking maybe I might put some Amazon swords in here that I have in my other tank, but I'm not sold on that idea yet, so I haven't gone ahead and replanted those. So here's how it's looking, and I hope it starts filling in and growing and doing well. But that's going to be it for this video. Thanks guys for checking it out, and I'll see you in the next one.